Hello, this is VDiscs Daddy. I wanted to share with you one of the videos I've had the opportunity to record over the years. This one was recorded November 22nd of 2006 with Freddie Von Bartheld, who had the opportunity to bring back a couple of his 16-inch VDisc albums after his service with the U.S. Army overseas. I hope you'll enjoy it. Thank you. I'm here with Mr. Fred Von Bartheld. I always say no. I apologize for that.
That's okay.
And you always go by Freddie, though.
Yeah, usually everybody knows this.
Okay. And we were talking a little bit about the VDisc records. And he was going to tell just how he acquired the VDisc records that he has. Go right ahead.
Coming home from Bremerhaven, Germany,
Mm-hmm.
I got on a troop ship. This was in January, and this is a tough time to come out on the North Sea. So instead of just sitting in your bunk or laying in your bunk all day long, there was a little room. We had VDiscs, and this is how I acquired the VDiscs.
Huh.
I would use those and play them, and when I left the ship, I took two with me. One was the Art Tatum, one had Benny Goodman, Teddy Wilson, and so forth. And that's the two records that I had, which you will have when I mail them back to you.
Did anybody ever say anything about it when you had the records?
No.
Did you ever know any of the history behind them?
Nope. I had no idea, but I did recordings up in Noel's studio in New York with different people, bands, but I had no idea. That was the last thing. I just put them in the room. I hadn't used them for many years, of course.
Yes.
And then when I saw you, and you were kind enough to show me the gentleman in Denver who took it off the VDisc, the large record, right?
Yeah, that was from the article back in 2004.
Yeah,
during.
Then I brought it to you, and you made the copies.
Yeah.
And such clear copies, I couldn't believe it because these were old timers. They're falling apart.
Oh, it's amazing material.
So there's two of them there. I think I still have the two which you got.
Now you were in the infantry?
Infantry, 78th Infantry Division. We took the Schwamnel Dam, which was an earth dam in Germany, and if they flooded that, they would have flooded our troops down below.
Wow.
And we crossed the Remagen Bridge the first day. That was going to cross the first crossing of the Rhine River.
Yes.
And we ended up, our services ended up in Wuppertal, Germany was our last one. But at that time, when the war ended, I had an 18-piece dance band that I formed out of what was left of us. And we played shows in Frankfurt, Kassel, Berlin. We'd have audiences of 12, 15,000 because it was free.
Yeah.
And it was very good. We had some comics and so forth. So.
Did you have a name to the band, or you just?
Well, it was just the 78th. No, it was just the 78th Infantry. It was a regimental band. This was not a regular orchestra. This is what we picked up.
Yes.
Because we were together on the state side before we went over.
Uh-huh.
And they took all the instruments, and we didn't see them until when the war ended.
Huh.
So that's the way that one went.
Wow. Now you live in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Were you aware of a lot of the other VDisc records that had been listed? Had you ever heard any of the other infantry songs or anything like that that had been created?
Absolutely not.
Or were you ever aware of any of the making of any of those?
Actually, when I got home.
Yeah.
That was it.
But when you had them over there, you said you had them. They were stored in a room. You
Well,
kept
it was
them.
on a ship. It was
Yeah.
a John Ericsson ship.
Okay.
It was the old Gripsholm, the Swedish ship. They turned it into a troop ship.
Uh-huh.
And they had just the one little room where you had a turntable and you would play records for the troops on the way. It was amusement for them all day. You know, the crossing took about 12, 14 days
Yeah.
to come into New York. So when I got off the ship, I took the two records.
Now, when you're on the ship, they would play them often, or?
Well, on the ship coming back, it was a troop ship, of course.
Mhm.
We would play them every day. You know, we had other VDiscs also.
Anything in particular that sticks out in your mind that were?
Art Tatum.
Anything? You know?
Mr. Tatum. I had met him a few times in the Three Deuces in New York, back.
What kind of person was he?
He's very nice, quiet, but I'll tell you, I met another chap when at one of my Army reunions in San Antonio, and the chap, the pianist for the hotel, he went to Juilliard, but he was a little bit after me. He was younger than I was. And his story was that he would see Art Tatum while he was going to Juilliard. He would take him out at after hours.
Uh-huh.
And the trick was, they would finish at 3, those old days at 3. And he would always buy a thermos of a nice concoction for Art, and they would go to the rent parties. Now, you know what a rent party is.
Uh-huh.
These were the rent parties where the greatest would just play, and they would have a little kitty, so they threw a couple bucks in it, and that would help pay for the rent for the person who had the piano.
Oh, wow.
And they would go on till the wee hours of the morning. They would just go on and on and on. But that was great jazz. I'd love to have copies of that, but they'll never, was never recorded.
Well, a lot of these VDisc records were really impromptu records. And a lot of them, they just traveled around with like 400 pounds of equipment in the vehicles and would just record whatever they heard wherever they were.
See, I didn't know that.
And so some of the ones were really unusual. Like some of them have like Ella Fitzgerald and Buddy Rich playing together, or interviews with Art Tatum, interviews with Louis Armstrong. Were you ever familiar with like Art Ford, or had you ever heard of Art Ford, or who was the other guy from Esquire? There was Art Ford, and then
Buddy would most likely know. Like Buddy Schutz, when you speak with him, you ask him those questions.
yeah.
Mark it down.
Had you ever heard of a place called Your Father's Mustache?
I've heard of it, but I never frequented it. I didn't know where it was. I really didn't get involved.
Okay.
I'll tell you a story about an Art Tatum performance. He's playing at the Three Deuces. And before he would perform, they had a small corner area where you would have the piano. And before Tatum went on with the trio, the announcer was everybody's quiet while Tatum played. Okay? He would come up, and in the Three Deuces, they didn't sell any food. It was just drinks. That's it. So, and when the performance was on stage, nothing was done. There was no serving whatsoever. It was silent. And I remember one performance, he's playing, and there was one chap that got a little boisterous. Art stops the piece, gets to the microphone and said, "Excuse me, please." They took care of the noisemaker. He went back to play and continued his piece.
Whoa.
But he was so cool about it, please, excuse me, please.
Wow.
And that's all it took. It was a commotion, get rid of it. And then he said, continued.
Wow.
That was the time Coleman Hawkins, that's right, he was there that night too. We got to see him.
Now, you met Coleman Hawkins?
I didn't, I'll tell you where I met him is in the John. Coleman, it was winter. Coleman had his overcoat on, his hat on, and he's sitting on the floor, and we were talking. And right across the street, we had the Downbeat Club, so you had Stuff Smith playing, or whoever was in the area,
Yes.
Well, that's 52nd Street was something that will never happen again. Never happen again. Real good guys. Yeah. So,
But you were talking about one with Buddy Schutz, who played with, he had played some with Benny Goodman and some of the others?
Sure. Oh, no, he was Benny Goodman, Jimmy Dorsey, Glenn Miller, and you'll talk with him. He'll give you some.
Would you tell me the one about the car again?
Miller was in New Orleans, and according to Buddy, and Glenn had a large car, and he had a date up in Chicago. So Glenn sold the big car to a few little guys, and they schlepped all the way up into Chicago, and he had a great, successful date there. Worked out fine.
Oh.
It's good.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Very good.
Excellent.
Call that Jimmy's soup.